Hello, Brett.
Hi, Ray. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm great.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So let's start with, how long Brett Loomis has worked for the city and what different kinds of capacities have you, what kind of service have you been involved in?
So I'm in my 25th year with the city of Salinas. I started here when I was 21 years old.
Silver anniversary.
Silver anniversary. Yep. January 3rd, 1994 was my hire date, and I've worked at every fire station in the city. I started serving in the Alice House, fire station number 4 on Williams Road. So, a young kid from Pacific Grove, being assigned to that fire station, there was a lot of growing up to do.
I'm sure.
And but I've thoroughly enjoyed every minute, serving this community. It's obviously very diverse, and we have our challenges, and you're aware as well as anybody. Some of the emergencies we go to are pretty severe, and that's not the good part of the job. But knowing that we can go and try to make a difference, that's my DNA. That's what I always want to do.
Is that what made you interested, if you will, in terms of a career in the fire service? Was it being able to make a difference, or I'm something else? Maybe a family member, or
so my uncle was a firefighter with Cal Fire, then called CDF, California Department of Forestry back in the day. But really, Ray, I'm pretty much living my dream as long as I can remember. Since I was about 4 years old, I've wanted to be a firefighter. And I was born and raised in Pacific Grove, and I started the first Explorer program in Pacific Grove because that's how badly I wanted to be in the fire service. And I'd ride my bike all over PG, chasing the fire engines to fires. And and some of my best fire service mentors I encountered there in Pacific Grove, and they're still a part of my life today. And it's just always been about that. It's been about how can I serve, how can I be better. And I volunteer at the AT&T Pro-Am, and I volunteer at the Pure Insurance Open, and I'm the president of the Salinas High School Booster Club, and I've been doing that for 4 years. Our kids go to Salinas High School, so I guess it's just about service.
Yeah, that's great.
What it is. Yep.
What are the challenges and sort of the trends you've seen over? I mean, it has to be very different than it was 25 years ago. The fire service now versus the fire service then.
It is on a number of fronts. The management component, the firefighting component, but just in the 25 years that I've been in the fire service, with the manufacturing of synthetics, right? The furniture that you can buy at some of the big box stores, right? It's sawdust held together with glue. The glue is made from petroleum products. So even when I came into the fire service 25 plus years ago with my volunteer time, fires didn't develop as rapidly as they develop now because of the different ways of manufacturing, right? It's always about getting a product out at the best cost to the manufacturer. So that is a huge challenge for us because we have to try to keep adapting to the changing situations and training our firefighters how to best attack those types of fires.
Right.
At the same time, we have to train and educate the community about how to be fire safe in the home.
The prevention
aspect, the education, because of our call volume that you and I regularly talk about, our ability to get firefighters into the classrooms is pretty much diminished down to nothing because they're responding to so many emergencies. Fire emergencies, medical emergencies, hazardous materials incidents, just the entire gamut. And with the advent of cell phones, that has definitely challenged the fire service because access to help is so easy, and people want to do good. Genuinely, they want to do good. So when they're driving by and they see somebody who's maybe just sleeping in the park, there might be an assumption that they're injured. So it's easy to dial 911 on the cell phone and say, I think this person is ill, I think they need help. So, that's a component. On the management side of things, the fire service and city service obviously changes, and you've been in city service a long time, right? And it's how do we do that? How do we make those changes to make sure that we're not shorting the community on the services that they pay for and expect, but we're doing it efficiently enough with the tax dollar, but at the same time, keeping the firefighters safe while they're doing it.
Right.
You know, and that's a very, very delicate balance. As you know, as recently as yesterday, as you and I kind of chatted about. One of the things that I've learned more than anything else in my time, and I say growing up in Salinas, because I really did from being a young man, is the value of the relationship. And you know, when I first came here, we had some challenges with between the labor group and the community and the city.
Right.
And we enjoy now a very, very good labor management relationship. And there's always going to be bumps in the road.
Sure.
We're here with a couple of bumps right now, but I've lived through those bumps, and I can honestly say that my relationship with our firefighters in the community has never, ever been stronger. I've gotten such wonderful support from them in this journey as the interim chief. I've gotten wonderful support from you, from city management. So that's going to go a long ways in us looking at the fire protection that we provide the community, and reaching out to the community to say, okay, the norm is going to change a little bit.
Right.
How do we change it, and what does it look like?
Right.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the activity, the volume, you know, what you're tasked or challenged to perform almost daily, really.
Yes.
And so on an annual basis, we're talking thousands of calls, thousands of requests for help, one kind or another, whether it's medical, as you pointed out, somebody might be seeing somebody sleeping on a bench and they don't know.
Right.
Or they might be sleeping on the sidewalk, they don't know.
Right.
Or, you know, there's a fire that just started in a residence and you got to go.
Right.
So can you characterize that? Can you tell us a little bit more the enormity of your scope of services and how
So last
active you
year, we responded to just under 15,000 calls for service in the city of Salinas. Record setting.
Right.
That was almost 1,000 call increase over the previous year.
Wow.
Yeah. We saw increases in every category. We saw a 10% increase in fire calls. We saw about a 10% increase in medical emergencies, hazardous conditions, you know, everything that we respond to. Some of the things that the community doesn't know is, you know, the fire department's really kind of the jack of all trades, right? When somebody needs help and they call 911 and there's not really a category to put it into, it gets categorized in the fire department. Right. So, you know, a lot of people say, well, gosh, we have all these fire engines, and we were just chatting here in the studio a few minutes ago. Why does this big fire engine show up, you know, when there's a car crash? Right. Well, we're an all-risk entity. We're expected to be at a medical emergency 1 minute and maybe fighting a fire the next minute. Right. And maybe going to a hazardous materials call the next minute, or maybe going to a power line down the next minute. Right. Time and time again, that large fire engine or that large ladder truck, though it's very big, behemoth-looking piece of equipment, has proven to be the best platform for us to provide all of those services, because we could be at a fire and have to leave to go to that car crash, or be at the car crash and have to leave to go to the fire. Firefighting is a very small part of what we do, but it is the most dangerous thing that we do. We have a fire in this town about every 17 hours. It's not always a house fire. Could be a grass fire, could be a trash can fire, could be a vehicle fire. That is a fire problem. And we have to be ready to address that.
So that kind of translates into some, you know, in terms of the prevention aspect, that, you know, there needs to be more, you know, maybe a little more focus on that. And that brings us to this question of, you know, fireworks, for example.
Yes, fireworks.
Which is topical, and I had interviewed the animal services manager, or the person, the deputy administrative chief for the police department, who has that responsibility. And she said, basically, I thought, you know, the busiest time for animals and their protection and their care was at 4th of July, because of the noise and all the excitement with 4th of July. I said 2 or 3 days, and she said, no, it's weeks before and it's weeks after. It is. So you must be experiencing the same thing with fire issues in fireworks and the like. And that's coming up very soon in terms
It is.
of when, you'll have to be prepared. You're probably already being preparing your firefighters and the community now.
Yes. Yes, and I agree with Cynthia 100%. It is definitely weeks and sometimes a month leading up to July 4th and that month after July 4th that we see a significant increase in fireworks and big illegal fireworks,
yes.
right? Obviously we have Safe and Sane that are legal between June 28th and July 5th.
But the voters proved that a couple of years ago.
The voters did via referendum a couple
Right.
years ago.
Right.
But one of the things that sometimes people don't pay attention to is that between noon on June 28th and 10 p.m. on July 5th is the only time that Safe and Sane fireworks are legal
Right.
in the city of Salinas. They're not allowed to fire them on city streets. They're not allowed to fire them on city sidewalks. They're not allowed to fire them in city parks. And that's where we find it happening time and time and time again. The illegal fireworks are a significant impact on the entire city services. And it's not just the city of Salinas, throughout the state, San Jose, Oakland, those are just a few cities that are all struggling with it. We're working closely with the police department, putting together an operational plan. We'll be adding additional firefighters. For the last 6 or 7 years, we have had a building fire either leading up to or on July 4th, or sometimes multiple building fires that have been fireworks caused.
Right.
And it's caused a lot of damage. Fortunately, we have not had a loss of life. We've had injuries because of them. It's a challenge. It's a challenge. We're going to do the absolute best we can with enforcement.
Right.
There's a lot of prevention effort going into it. We're working with our Booch Road group to get the word out through every avenue, through real estate and real estate management to get to their property owners, through the schools, through Salinas Connect. If people start reporting on Salinas Connect, we're going to make a trip out to that address and we're going to hang a very strongly worded notice on their door that they've been reported, they are in violation of the law, and if it's witnessed, that we're going to take action.
But it has to be difficult, given you have to catch them at the act.
It's very difficult.
They have to have the goods with them, right?
They have to have the goods with them. They have to catch them in the act. The firefighters are somewhat limited in their ability to do enforcement because we're encountering people who are under the influence of alcohol. We're encountering people who maybe have a criminal background. And it's not just adults, it's children, and there are adults that are putting children at risk.
Not a safe situation.
It is not a safe situation at all. Anything that flies in the air, anything that goes boom or bang, those are illegal fireworks, and they should not be used. If you have them, you can safely surrender them to us. No harm, no foul, so to speak. But people just need to stay away from those things. We have a couple of neighborhoods in town that have big block parties with illegal fireworks. And a couple years ago, with our law enforcement partners, we all went in there and started breaking some things up. And a few people got a little bit rowdy. And what happened is they accidentally kicked over an illegal mortar and it fired sideways through the crowd. Just a dangerous, dangerous situation.
But there is a law on the books, city law on the books for social hosting.
There is.
And the consequence of that if you're caught.
There is. There is a social.
Go to detail.
There's a social host ordinance, which basically means if we see a property that's engaged in illegal firework activity, we can provide an administrative citation to that property. Just on the witness of the public safety official. We try to get pictures and other things, and we'll send those out. And last year we sent out 54 administrative citations.
There were a lot of parties.
There were a lot of parties, and that was just a minute fraction of what was going on. And the part I enjoy working with Chief Fresse, and she's made a comment a couple times about just kind of the lack of respect for the law that so many people have here in our community. To the fact that 13 people walked in to Permit Center, paid their $1,250 fine as if it was nothing, and said, "We'll do it again next year."
Wow.
So we're happy to cite them again
Right.
and take their check again,
Right.
but that's not what we want. We want a change in behavior is what it is. You know, we and it's very hard to track data. You know, we're a data-driven organization,
Right.
obviously. It's very hard to track that data. We can go out and say that we've given out X number of citations, but there's no meter to determine whether or not we've actually
Right.
changed a behavior.
Right.
There's just not a meter for that. And more citations does not mean better enforcement.
Right.
It doesn't. But in the meantime, it's an impact on the city budget because we have to add additional firefighters. The police department has to add additional police officers
Right.
in an overtime capacity.
Right.
Yeah, and it's you know, long-term strategy is going to be critical.
Right.
You know, according to the ordinance, we have to be in front of City Council to talk about our proposal. We'll be doing that at the May 3rd City Council meeting.
Okay, that's coming up.
That's coming up. Myself and Chief Fresse and Chief Klemek from our organization will be up there sharing
Okay.
with council. And all I can say is that we are going to do the absolute best job that we
Right.
can with prevention first and enforcement when necessary
Right.
within what our resources will allow us to do.
Right. Right. We have to almost make it, Brett. It seems like it's not cool to do this. Like,
Right.
Not cool to smoke cigarettes.
Right.
It's not cool to overdose on prescription drugs. It's not cool.
Right, exactly. And, you know, there's been a number of different discussions about how do we do that?
Right.
You know, do we post your neighbor's picture on the Facebook page and those types of things? And I'm not necessarily in support of that because,
Right.
you know, I think that there are better ways. You know, I think that one of the best ways to a parent, in my opinion, is through their kid.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
And
Right.
if we can be more concerted once we get our staffing back up, I mentioned the shortage at least the fire department
Right.
has, where I can get some firefighters into the classrooms
Right.
and reach those kids on that level because
Right.
we see so many kids lighting fireworks.
Oh yeah.
And it doesn't matter whether it's safe or sane or illegal fireworks, that is just plain dangerous.
Right.
Children should not be lighting fireworks. They should not be using matches or lighters
Right.
or any of those types of things. So
It almost falls to the parent then.
it does fall to the parent
Right.
ultimately. But if we can reach out through the schools,
Mm-hmm.
and it might be an investment of some overtime dollars, but I think
Yeah.
it would be a wise investment.
Right.
Even if we can influence 2 students out of every 30 student class,
Right.
we're 2 students ahead.
Right.
We're 2 students
That's a
ahead.
great idea. Maybe there's
So-
a way to implement that. At some
There
point.
there may very well be. And I have a lot of very young, very talented firefighters. You know, we're a very young organization now because of all of
Right.
our hiring who want to be more involved and they
Right.
want to do more things. And you know, we've reached out to the ROP program out on East Laurel, and we're getting some companies involved in that training for the adolescents. But
Right.
I think that there are some opportunities. You know, it's not always the overtime is draining the budget. You know, like you and I have talked about, right? The dollars translate into something with regards to service, and if
Right.
we think that it's going to make a good difference in what
Right.
we're trying to achieve, I think it's an appropriate expenditure.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it seems to me that, you know, the more education, the better. And
Absolutely.
It's always difficult because you know, resources is a question.
Right.
And you have a very busy fire service. So
We do.
getting people out to do some community work is not, you know, always convenient for your firefighters because you're going from incident to incident. So, but maybe there's a partnership with the schools or somebody else that can help foster that, not just at 4th of July time, but throughout the
Right.
year.
We need to be reaching out well before the 4th of July.
Yeah.
You know, we see it predominantly on 4th of July, but New Year's Eve, New Year's Day.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
That happens. I think we had some going off on Easter just last weekend.
Wow.
Yeah, just isolated pockets.
Right.
Yeah, that I think that we will continue to work on as we always do.
Right.
Yeah.
So there are some beneficiaries, though, to the fireworks, right?
Yes.
At least for nonprofits, and that is worked through the city and through the the fireworks vendors.
Yes. Yes.
How does that work?
So outlined in the code are the nonprofits, the school organizations globally that have the opportunity to apply for a lottery draw, if you will.
To have a booth.
To be able to have a booth.
Right.
And so we conduct that lottery draw publicly. I attended it a couple of weeks ago. The mayor was there pulling the tickets for us, as he always does. There were 2 representatives from 2 of the fireworks companies there, obviously. And we pull the tickets and we notify the applicants who was selected and who wasn't selected based on the limits within the code. And I don't have the numbers off the top of my head of all the selections, but
is there a dozen or so, 18?
No, it's more than a dozen.
Okay.
More than a dozen.
Right.
We're going to have, and they're spread out throughout the community. You know, they can't be within 600 feet of each other, so we strategically place them in different locations. And yes, to your opening point, there are nonprofits that very much benefit from these Safe and Sane fireworks. I know of an aquatics program at a local high school that brings in anywhere between $25,000 and $40,000 a year, and they have to because their high school doesn't have a pool.
Wow.
So they have to go rent a pool someplace else. So it's very important dollars that come in, and really the Safe and Sane fireworks really are. They are safe and sane for a reason. Yes, they still do cause fires when people light them in grass and those types of things, but they're a fairly small contributor to our overall much larger and much more complex problem of the aerial fireworks and those types of things.
What can the concerned resident or citizen do to help the fire service with the severe fireworks issue? Because it really blossoms, as you said, there's somewhat a disregard for the law.
Yes.
There are more social parties that people that interact and they seem to want to have the fireworks of some kind, usually illegal.
Right.
What can a concerned citizen do about helping the fire service?
So several things, and I'm glad you asked the question. The first thing is we just need the community to be engaged.
Okay.
Right. If they see a fireworks being shot off, illegal fireworks being shot off, there are several avenues that they can report. They can report via 911. Aerial fireworks are classified as an explosive device. Those are very dangerous. I would very much encourage anybody who has neighbors who are shooting them off or they're being shot off in the area to contact 911, and we need some very accurate information.
Right.
Please give us a specific address.
Right.
If you are able to provide some photographs of people or what's happening, you can't submit that to 911, but the follow-up to that is you can post it on Salinas Connect.
Right.
Go to the website, download the app. We will be monitoring Salinas Connect, and it will notify us automatically every time there's a fireworks complaint.
Okay.
Last year in the city of Salinas, we had over 1,000 reports of illegal fireworks. Now, some of those were the same fireworks, understandably, but we had over 1,000 reports just to 911. And then via our website, via our tip line, via our fireworks app. But we're trying to focus everybody back to that Salinas Connect as the primary, because it's automatic notification and we can get feedback.
Right.
You know, sometimes the feedback might be we arrived and there were no fireworks. Understandable.
Right.
But if they can give us a specific address and they can give us pictures, that may be enough for us to be able to go the administrative site route.
Right.
So that's the biggest thing, is being involved. And I know people are concerned. I know people are afraid that they don't want to be involved. They don't want their neighbors to come after them or whatever it is.
Right.
But we heard some great things out of Boots Road the other day about what a much more positive image Salinas is having because of our outreach and because of our marketing. The community changes when people are bold and step up.
Yes.
When people are bold and step up and say, this is wrong and it needs to stop, and I'm going to help stop it.
Right.
Safety in a community is a partnership, whether it's fire safety, whether it's police safety or whatever. It's a partnership with the community. I mentioned there's 98 employees in the fire department, including me. There's 160,000 residents here.
A point well taken.
Right. I mean, we have way more eyes in the community than I have eyes in the fire department. So the more that we can empower them to make those reports, and It does request some information, but if we truly want to go after these people that are firing them, we have to get good statements. We have to get good information, and then we can go and say, we have a witness who reported this, you're getting your citation.
It's like a co-production. The community is a partner with the fire service to co-produce a solution. The basic solution is accurate information with the address, with the persons involved, the time, the
everything,
day,
all the facts.
Everything you can. That helps the fire service. And
exactly.
The more often you can be accurate, the better off, because the data can be utilized in ways that might help avert those serious situations, or in some ways an education and prevention in that neighborhood where most of the problems occur.
Exactly. We'll be able to take the data out of Salinas Connect, and let's say we have 200 reports in a one-block area, say in North Salinas, for example. We can take that data and we can assemble some very focused community meeting type activities, door-to-door, hang flyers or whatever. There are a number of ways, and that will be somewhat of a telltale the following year. If we see a reduction in those reports, not the complete telltale, but we would also be able to monitor that visually. And if we saw the reduction there, then there's at least some substantiation that our outreach efforts worked, thanks to the community.
That's the key.
That's the key. That is the key, because our firefighters and our police officers are incredibly busy, not on 4th of July, much less 4th of July.
Usually it's a little late by the time they call you.
It is. They've been listening to it for a while, they've been watching it for a while, and then it's like, well, I'm ready to go to bed, and they're still doing it, so now I'm going to call. And in the meantime, we've been sent someplace else for some other type of an incident.
Or 4 days before there was a incident, they could report that earlier than waiting until the 4th of July.
There are going to be neighborhoods where there are neighbors that we have one not very far behind Fire Station Number 1 that in the weeks leading up to July 4th and the weeks afterwards, right about 11 o'clock, 3 or 4 big aerial fireworks, and then they stop because they know by that time we can get out and figure out where it is. But neighbors, every time that happens, going to Salinas Connect, every time that happens, it's happened this time. It's happened this time. Same address over and over and over again. It gives us that much more data to be able to take good, solid action to change the behavior.
Well, this has been very informative, Brett.
Thank you.
Lots of things going on, lots of activity, and certainly many challenges in the present and the near future for the fire service. So we certainly appreciate you taking your time to be here on the show. I'm sure our citizens who view the program will have learned a lot more about the fire services, what it tries to accomplish, and some of the challenges and how the community can help.
And that's what it's about. We're here to serve the community, and we're here to help the community help themselves. And that's what's most important.
Well, thanks again, Brett.
Thank you, Ray.
Appreciate your time.
I appreciate it.